We may be getting more Battlefield leaks very, very soon. In fact, this coming up week. This is based off of a leak, and we're going to get into a video that we're going to watch on Battlefield 6, but the leak comes from here on Reddit. Someone put out this post. It says, playtest next Friday, March 21st. So this coming up Friday. The next playtest will be held next Friday. Invites should be expected at the beginning of next week, Monday to Tuesday. The developers also worked on user feedback. So I think it was like 2 weeks ago now, was the first playtest. Everything got leaked. This is getting leaked from a Russian leaker on a Telegram channel. When you see the gameplay online, you could scan it and then it takes you to a Telegram. I don't recommend going to Telegram ever. There's so many scams on there and everything. But they have been leaking a lot on there, so it's somewhat reputable. Now, apparently what they are changing is the pace of the battle, especially the movement of both the map and the fighters, whatever the map part means. Improvements to sliding and landing mechanics. I think that's considered like the landing, like when you like jump out of a thing, like rolling to reduce damage, I think. The optimal parameters. So they talked about adjusting the movement to speed up or slow down the game. Improvements to death dynamics, dragging, respawning, HP count, resupply, visibility of fighters, and understanding what killed you. Infantry versus equipment balance. So that includes like tanks and things like that. Then they also shared some statistics. 12% of players have revived teammates, which is super, super low. One of the players managed to melee 16 players in one session. I guess that's neat, strange stat to share though. RPG is the best choice to destroy tanks. That's kind of obvious. 37.2% played for all classes and only 8.9 for one. That's interesting, as they changed up all the like actually switching between. I think most people kind of like pick one style and switch between it. 14.2% tried more than 5 weapons per session. The developers are asking for more experimentation. So they're asking for people to try more things for obvious reasons, but I'm assuming some of the people that are playing just want to do well. Now, we have this video from Level Cap going over everything we know from the current leaks. So I thought that this would be a good thing to go over. If indeed later this week we are going to be getting another playtest, then after that playtest we can recap and see everything that we learned from that one. But this is everything that we know after the first playtest session and after everything that's got leaked. So I'm assuming that this is going to include like grabbing soldiers and dragging them, the classes, everything like that. So let's see what Level Cap has to say here.
Gameplay has leaked online, revealing pretty much the entire testing experience if you're curious about it. And today I'm going to break down
to be clear, it's only one map that they were testing, only one mode, lots of weapons, lots of classes, that kind of thing, but
everything we've learned from that leaked footage. Of course, I cannot show that actual gameplay due to it being under NDA, but it is all over the internet if you want to find it for yourself.
Like literally everywhere.
Let's talk about everything we've learned from it. So one of the more important elements of a Battlefield game is simply how it feels to run around, interact with things, get in and out of vehicles. If that's not right, then it doesn't feel.
So in a lot of Battlefield games, I have felt like your soldier feels too clunky, and that's because I'm a Call of Duty player. And it's done on purpose in a lot of games where it feels like you're carrying a lot of gear when you're playing. However, certain Battlefield games have done it where it feels like that, but you also feel fluent. And I think that's what they're trying to go for. Remember how I was talking about how they put out the thing saying that they're adjusting that movement? I think that's what they are trying to hone in.
Like a Battlefield game. And based on the leaked footage, it shows a lot of physicality to the animations, and DICE have brought back some of the movement stuff from Battlefield 5, like rolling when falling. But unlike Battlefield 5, you don't appear to be constantly locked into lengthy animations whenever you interact with something. Getting in and out of vehicles is quick with a very fast transition. It also doesn't look like you have to directly interact with ammo or health crates. DICE have even brought back a feature that was cut from Battlefield 5 before launch that lets you drag down teammates to safety before you...
Let's be clear, if you've seen the clip where they are dragging their teammates to safety, there's like one clip that everyone's seen out there. It looks very clunky.
You revive them. I'm actually curious to see how many people use this feature versus just reviving people out in the middle of the open, which is the classic Battlefield approach. Now the gunplay and some of the other movement systems is where things start to look a little bit more Battlefield 2042. DICE have implemented a new recoil system that makes the guns always point wherever the recoil is kicking. So if you shoot and the recoil makes your shot go up and to the right, your gun model will also angle up and to the right. But generally speaking, the weapon handling and firing animations have that clean and punchy look that I'm most used to from 2042. But it does look like a step up from that game. Something that stood out to me is that the soldiers seem to run a bit slower than they have in the recent Battlefield games. Obviously that perception...
I am so glad that he said that, because I thought the same thing. I'm like, this seems slower, this seems heavier, like, and no one else was saying it. And like, I didn't like come out and straight up say it because I don't know everything about Battlefield. I played pretty much all of them. In fact, 1942 was it the first multiplayer? It was either that or Team Fortress 2 was the first multiplayer shooter that I played online on PC. I can't remember which one. I think it was 1942. I think it was.
Can be changed quite a bit based on field of view and all that kind of stuff, but it does almost look like they're going for the BF3 or Battlefield 4 soldier movement speed. There doesn't seem to be that second tactical sprint that races your gun and lets you run slightly faster for a brief time. And as an old school Battlefield fan, I'd be totally fine with that. Tactical sprint just seemed like a requirement because other games were doing it, but I never felt like it added that much to Battlefield and kind of gummed up some of the movement controls.
I don't think it adds anything to Call of Duty. I think tactical sprint needs to go.
Now, probably the biggest shakeup to the gameplay is the introduction of field specs. These are 4 class-specific character upgrades you earn via XP during a match.
So if you want to see this, just Google or go on Reddit or Twitter or whatever and look up new Battlefield classes, and you'll be able to see this.
The first 3 options seem to give your class passive upgrades, while the last tier is an active option that you enable for a temporary boost. The Assault, for example, gets Grenadier at tier 1, Flak at tier 2, Gadget Reload at tier 3, and finally Heavy Flak at tier 4. And they do what you might expect, especially if you're used to Battlefield 4 system. Carry more grenades, extra resistance to explosive damage, faster gadget reloads, and the Heavy Flak can be activated for a temporary extreme damage resistance against explosives. Maybe that'll save you from C4 being tossed at your feet or something like that. Now, past Battlefield games have had variations of this system with squad upgrades or character class perks. The other classes didn't have stuff that seemed quite as powerful as the Assault tier 4, but they still get some pretty big bonuses. Support gets an active medic, which turns them into a walking supply crate for a limited time. Recon gets a mortar strike that they can call in at tier 4. This reminds me a lot of Bad Company 2. And at tier 3, they get the kill shot perk that prevents enemies from getting revived if they get a headshot kill. I actually really like this idea and always wanted something like that to be added to Battlefield. And finally, the engineer gets a thermite drone that they can deploy that acts like an anti-vehicle EMP. Now, due to the extremely early state of the game and lots of things being placeholder and white box, it's hard to say how many of these perks or abilities will even make it to the final.
So that was one of the things I think I was most surprised about when I first saw the gameplay for Battlefield, is this early gameplay. Like, there's like things that are not done in it. And they knew that this was going to leak. Like, they knew it was going to leak and they wanted it to, because I think, yes, they wanted player feedback from who's playing it, but I think they also wanted it through the community. And like, when it's like kind of hidden like this, it almost adds like a little bit of free marketing to it, if you will. And then I think once their feedback was positive, they're like, leave it up. Let them see it.
Final build. I do hope that DICE avoids doing stuff where players can get armor plates to increase their health pool or anything like that. It's never really been my favorite in past Battlefield games where players can have different health amounts, and it leads to more inconsistency during firefights. But that's just my...
The only game, to my recent knowledge, that like different amounts of health actually works is the finals. Because in the finals, it's balanced with your movement and your abilities. It just works in that game. I've never thought it would, but it does. And that, like, even Call of Duty back in the day with Juggernaut, I hated it.
Personal pet peeve, or wish list rather, for the game. I'd also be curious to see if DICE is planning to let us customize our class upgrade paths and whether or not they're going to factor some of these perks and abilities into a progression tree. So when you start off the game, maybe you don't have the best tier 4 perk, but you can get the artillery strike or something like that if you rank up your recon class really high. That said, having an active ability that you can progress towards does sound a bit too in line with kill streaks, so hopefully DICE can adjust the timing.
Yeah, and I kind of like that, but I don't think all will.
Of it, so that once you unlock something like an artillery strike, you're not constantly raining it down on people and it just turns into a kill streak type game mode. Now, something that has always been a focus point whenever a new Battlefield game launches is just how much content is available on launch day. So far, it seems like there isn't exactly a ton of weapons to choose from in the Battlefield Labs test. And the weapons appear like they can be equipped by all the classes, which does increase the overall weapon variety regardless of what class you pick, but it also makes some of the classes feel less.
So there's one of the things we were talking about last time, whether or not that's a good or a bad thing. And I would definitely see that is something they're willing to adjust. But as he's saying there, it does look like you can use any weapon with any class as of right now.
It's unique. I would imagine some of that's going to be restricted, like, say, a sniper rifle to the recon class or something. Yeah. Now, based on combing through the footage, it looks like there's about 8 assault rifles, 6 carbines, 8 SMGs, 8 LMGs, 5 DMRs, a sniper rifle, no shotgun, 1 pistol, and a handful of explosive gadgets like RPGs and M320s.
So for certain classes, solid amount of guns. You need like LMGs, a couple shotguns, and maybe another sniper or 2 as well.
Of course, this weapon count is just based on digging through footage. It's entirely possible that there's tons more weapons that are just locked behind progression or something like that. Now, on a personal level, and speaking outside of my content creator mentality, I don't necessarily need games to have just a plethora of guns to chew through. Often they don't add too much variety, and we had that Battlefield 4 syndrome of guns not feeling particularly interesting or unique because it just had so many guns it was hard to differentiate them or make.
So this is something that I think a lot of shooters go, like the road that they go down, specifically Call of Duty. I don't think guns feel really unique in Call of Duty anymore. I think when Black Ops 6 came out, they did. But then as they add in more weapons, it's like, okay, does the Krig and the Amies really feel that different? And then compare those to the XM4. Like, not really. Like, not enough to like be like, this weapon's worth having in there. I don't know, maybe I'd
make them stand out in an interesting way. But one of the best compliments of having a ton of weapons is, one, you get to role play and set up your kit however you would imagine it and use your favorite weapon from whatever game or genre that you like, but also it adds a ton of progression. So there's a big upside to it as well. Now, as for some of the more nuanced or hidden details that I've seen in leaked footage, there's a few things that could have deeper mechanics to them. The smoke effects in general seem to be more volumetric and physically interactable than past Battlefield titles. Weapon fire, destruction, and explosions seem to push that smoke around a bit. It doesn't appear to be at the same level of interactivity as, say, Counter-Strike 2, but it would be cool to see this kind of mechanic turned into more of a realistic gameplay system, like being able to lessen or move smoke out of the way temporarily, especially if a helicopter could blow it out of the way when it's coming down for a low pass or a landing. Smoke grenades get used a ton in Battlefield since you have to cross a lot of open ground. They're extremely useful, and DICE have demoed a pretty complex smoke simulation system before, so maybe they're working on something even deeper than what's currently playable. Another cool thing I noticed was that armored vehicles have some new gameplay elements. The health is broken up into multiple segments now. Each of the bigger segments is probably the max amount of health that the driver can auto repair. So if you take enough damage to knock, say, 2.5 out of your 3-bar health system, you can only fully recover the remaining half.
I think
segment.
vehicle balance
This is my guess
important.
Anyway, as it would just line up with other game systems that have a tiered health mechanic. Now, the vehicle supply stations are back from Battlefield 5, and they can fully recover your health and ammo. Your main gun does have a limited ammo pool, which I like. It means you can't park your tank on the top of a cliff and rain down sniper fire indefinitely. You'll eventually have to go back and rearm. But your secondary weapons like HMGs seem to have unlimited ammo. Tanks also take physicalized damage with big sections of their plating falling off when they take fire. At one point I saw the tread covers for the side of a tank get blown off. This is a great way to show what parts have already been damaged and or could be a way of indicating that certain parts of vehicles are disabled. Or it could also indicate just how much health a vehicle has left. If you notice it's missing a ton of its armor, it might be on its last legs. Now, a cool detail I noticed is that there's a more interactive prompt for you to pick up kits of dead soldiers. You get a HUD element telling you what primary weapon they had and the ability to ping the kit for your teammates. Now, in terms of more obvious stuff, I think the updated deploy screen looks really solid. It's basically Battlefield 4's, but with a 3D map. You can zoom and ping the map while waiting to deploy, see, effectively turning you into a little bit of a squad commander while you're waiting for your deployment timer to finish up. You also get that very useful picture-in-picture view of the soldier or flag that you're going to deploy on. This is great for preventing you deploying into something that's about to die. Often vehicles can be on their last legs, you spawn into them and die immediately. Hopefully this will inform you before doing so. Now, each class has 3 loadout slots you can pick from as well, so you can quickly swap between class loadouts between lives. Now, a quality of life feature that I really wish we were seeing back is the vehicle visible timer, so that you can see how long a vehicle is going to take to respawn from the deployment screen. This can be super useful for knowing if just waiting another 5 or 10 seconds will get you a good transport vehicle so you can get back into the action quickly. It's been a feature in past titles, but absent from the more recent ones. Now, squad management is back with the ability to lock your squad and create a new one. I didn't see if the option to kick a player from your squad was available, but it does look like you can at least mute individual players. Now, stepping back and collating all of this footage and information, it seems like if you were hoping for a more grounded, gritty, and realistic Battlefield experience, DICE is looking to build the modernized version of BF3 and BF4, which I think would appeal to probably the biggest market.
That's what everyone wants right now. They want something realistic. That's exactly why when people are seeing this, that's why they're getting excited. And especially when you compare it to the stupidity of what Call of Duty's been putting out, like how ridiculous it is. And I think it's going to get more ridiculous next year, honestly, because apparently wall running's coming. Smart move.
Of Battlefield gamers. There doesn't appear to be any specialist gadgets or sci-fi weaponry tech. It's all basic boots on the ground gameplay with great looking graphics and tons of destruction. Now that said, aside from the field spec system and some nuanced mechanics, it's hard to point out anything big that sets this title apart from either past Battlefield games or even what else is on the market today. And to be fair and avoid trying to be too much of a hypocrite, it does drive me crazy when DICE tries to innovate too much or fix tons of stuff that isn't broken. So ideally, not reinventing those elements of the game that aren't broken is totally fine with me. But in terms of big, new, innovative wow factors, there's nothing here yet that quite highlights the gameplay to me. But maybe that's kind of the point, and also we have to remember that we're seeing leaked gameplay of Battlefield Labs. EA knew that this gameplay was going to leak. I talked about it in past videos saying that it was probably even built in as part of their marketing strategy.
100%. This is exactly what I was saying, and I've said this from the beginning. I'm like, they're putting it behind NDA and they think that's gonna work.
To build up natural quote unquote hype around the game that wasn't EA trying to self-promote. So if they do have some big flashy feature, they're probably saving it for their own reveal trailer so that they can be the ones to kind of control that way that the new feature is perceived. Maybe that's the whole connected universe idea that they keep repeating during investors' calls. Maybe it's something else. We'll just have to wait and see. And everything shown so far does look quite cool. It looks very solid and grounded, kind of like the ideal game that I wish we got after, say, the Battlefield 4 franchise. And now that we're so many years after that fact and we're getting back to it, it feels a little too late in some regards. So I'm looking for that extra little bit of oomph, that extra little bit of wow factor. Now, something that I'm still very curious about is a lot of the back end technology. How easy is it going to be to squad up with friends? This has gone from being very easy to very difficult.
Well, that's like the user interface stuff and things like that. All games struggle with this, and I've talked about this so many times I don't need to again, but apparently it's one of the hardest things to do in video games is a good user interface that works well.
Difficult in past Battlefield games, which has been mind-blowing considering it's sort of the point of the whole game. I'm also curious to see if team balance is going to be reworked, if they're going to have new tools to ensure fair and balanced various game modes? Will progression be fun, or is it going to be tied to weird, annoying mission systems? And I think my concern here is fairly warranted, considering it's been one of the weaker aspects of a lot of past Battlefield games. It can really just turn into a lot of quality of life features that are missing that end up hampering the overall gameplay experience. Even if it's a great experience once you get into a game with friends and you're having an absolute blast, if the time period to get into a game and squad up with your buddies is longer than 10 minutes, then we've got a pretty big problem. Now, I'd be curious to know your thoughts on the gameplay that's been leaked so far.
I haven't talked about this, and I will. This is pretty much the end of the video here, but I think one of the reasons why Marvel Rivals did so well is that you're immediately in another game, time after time after time after time after time after time, just right back into a game over and over and over again. You get out of a game, you're back in a game in 10 seconds. You're not waiting 10 minutes to get into a game. And like, that's part of the magic of it. That's why so many people are playing it for so long, because there's no downtime. There's no time to think, oh, I forgot to brush my teeth today.
Is this the direction that you want from DICE? Do you want them to keep it grounded and not worry about crazy big, innovative, flashy features? Were you hoping for more from them? Do you want something completely different? Let me know in the comments. I'd be really curious. Also, if you enjoyed this breakdown, don't forget to drop me a like, subscribe for more content like it, and if you want to see what Battlefield plays like in Arma Reforger, check out this video. It's actually pretty darn cool. As always, guys, thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time. This is LevelCap, signing off.
So I guess just to summarize, that's it. Like that's what we got from this, and it's still extremely early. This week we should get more, and I think this week we'll probably be able to tell a little bit more about movement systems and things like that. But the whole thing's gonna leak again. Someone's gonna be streaming it on Twitch. Someone will have it on Telegram. Someone will be streaming it on Discord. So probably later this week, next weekend time frame, we're gonna probably have another video like this if last time was any sort of indicator. But so far, Call of Duty might be worried. A lot of games might be worried, man. Delta Force, if I was Delta Force, I'd be like, we got to get on consoles immediately. But where's that?